I'm 53 years old. For most of my life, I believed love was something reserved for fairy tales and younger women. I had a marriage that fizzled out quietly, 2 grown kids who barely call, and a home that's too quiet most nights. I kept busy. Books, tea, walks in the evening, and an occasional phone call with my sister. I thought I had found peace in the ordinary. But then, something happened. Something I still have trouble saying out loud. I let my friend's son stay the night, and what he did changed everything. Please, don't make the same mistake I did. The first time I met Ryan, he was barely 16, lanky, all limbs, and still figuring out where his voice should sit. His mother, Janet, is one of my oldest friends. We'd raised our kids in the same cul-de-sac, passed casseroles over the fence, and laughed about the chaos of PTA meetings. I'd watch Ryan grow up in bits and pieces, birthday parties, holiday drop-ins, the occasional summer barbecue. But the boy I remembered had grown into a man. It had been nearly a decade since I'd last seen him when he showed up at my door that afternoon. His mother had sent him, well, more like nudged him, really, to deliver a small package of homemade candles she promised me. He stood there, taller than I remembered, wearing a navy hoodie that clung to his broad frame. His face had lost the roundness of youth, now defined by sharp cheekbones and a quiet kind of intensity in his eyes. "Miss Caroline," he said with a warm smile. "Long time, huh?" "Oh, honey," I said, stepping aside. "You can drop the miss. Just Caroline is fine these days." I invited him in for tea. It was a cold, gray afternoon, and the kettle had just started to whistle. He shrugged off his jacket and followed me inside like it was the most natural thing in the world. We talked in the living room, the two of us curled into opposite corners of the old couch. I poured tea into chipped mugs and offered him a plate of lemon cookies I'd made the day before. He told me about his new job, something in graphic design, and how he was visiting town for a few weeks before heading back to Portland. He'd always been artistic, even as a kid, drawing dragons on napkins and sketching people's faces when they weren't looking. He looked at me with the same soft focus, his brow furrowed just slightly, like I was a puzzle he hadn't finished yet. "I don't know how you stay so calm," he said after a pause. "My mom always said you were like a lighthouse." I smiled at that. Lighthouses get weathered, too. We talked for hours, and the daylight faded into evening without either of us noticing. Rain tapped at the windows like an old friend asking to come in, and I realized how late it had gotten. "Are you driving back to Janet's?" I asked, glancing at the clock. "It's getting nasty out there." He hesitated. "Actually, I was gonna grab a motel. Mom's got her sister over tonight, and the guest room's full." There was a beat of silence. "You're welcome to stay here," I said before I could think better of it. "I've got the extra room. It's not much, but it's warm." He looked at me, his expression unreadable for a moment. Then he smiled again, gentler this time. "Are you sure? I don't want to impose." "Ryan," I said, standing and smoothing down the front of my sweater, "I've got sheets and pillows begging for some company. You'll be doing them a favor." He laughed, and I led him upstairs, showing him the small guest room across from mine. The same room my daughter had painted lilac back in high school. He stood in the doorway, looking around with quiet appreciation. "Thank you, Caroline," he said, his voice soft. "Really." We said goodnight, and I closed my bedroom door, leaning against it for a moment. My heart beat a little faster than it should have, and I blamed the tea, or maybe the rain. I changed into my robe, turned off the bedside lamp, and slid under the covers. I told myself I was being silly, that it was just kindness and nothing more. But there was something different in the air that night, a hum beneath the silence, a sense that something had shifted. Around midnight, I couldn't sleep. I found myself wandering down the hall, barefoot, listening to the creaks of the old floorboards and the steady rhythm of the rain. His door was cracked open, just barely. I should have turned back. Instead, I stood there, looking in. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, arms resting on his knees, looking out the window like he couldn't sleep either. He must have heard me. "Caroline?" he asked, turning. I froze. "Sorry," I whispered, embarrassed. "Didn't mean to spy. Just couldn't sleep." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he stood, walked over, and gently opened the door wider. "You okay?" And I don't know what it was, loneliness, the hour, the vulnerability in his voice. But I nodded and said, "Yeah, just didn't realize how quiet this house is until someone else was in it." He smiled, and it wasn't the smile of a boy anymore. It was full of something warmer, wiser. "Want to sit for a bit?" he asked. And I did. I really, truly did. I stepped into the room like I was crossing some invisible line, a threshold I hadn't planned to breach. The air felt still, heavy with something unspoken. He moved aside, letting me sit on the edge of the bed while he settled in the chair near the window, elbows resting on his knees again. For a few minutes, we didn't say anything. Outside, the rain kept its rhythm, soft and constant, like background music you forget is playing until you stop to listen. "I used to sit like that too," I finally said, "when my kids were little. After they went to bed, I'd sit at the window just like that, wondering what came next." He looked over, thoughtful. "Did anything ever come?" "Not really. Life kept going. Days became years. And here I am." He nodded slowly, his gaze meeting mine. "I don't know why I always thought grown-ups had it all figured out." I laughed softly. "We don't. We just get better pretending." He smiled, but there was sadness behind it. "I've been pretending a lot lately, like I know where I'm headed or who I want to be. But honestly, I've never felt more lost." That quiet confession hit something deep in me. I'd known that feeling, still knew it, even now. No one tells you that even in your 50s, you can feel like you're just fumbling through the dark. "You don't have to have all the answers yet," I said. "Sometimes it's okay just to feel your way through." He looked at me again, longer this time, and something about that gaze made my breath catch. It wasn't lust. Not yet. It was understanding. That rare, heavy kind. The kind that says, asterisk, "I see you, asterisk." I reached for the old quilt folded at the foot of the bed, laid it across my lap just to keep my hands busy. "When my marriage ended," I said quietly, "I thought I'd finally feel free. And for a while I did. But then the silence set in, and the years started to echo." He shifted in the chair, leaning forward a little. "Do you regret it?" I shook my head. "Not the ending. But sometimes I regret how little of myself I let anyone see afterward." I hadn't meant to say that out loud. The words just spilled out like they'd been waiting. And Ryan didn't look away. He didn't pity me. He didn't offer a cliché. He just said, "You're not invisible. Not to me." That did something to me. Stirred something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. I looked away, flustered. "You're sweet to say that." "I'm not trying to be sweet," he said, his voice low. "I mean it." There was a long pause after that, a breathless kind of silence. "I should let you sleep," I said, standing up quickly. The quilt slid from my lap to the floor. I bent to pick it up, but he was there before me. Our hands touched, and we both froze. His fingers were warm, steady, and I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on us. I looked up. So did he. The space between us suddenly felt too small, too electric, and I panicked, not from fear, but from the realization of how easy it would be to lean in, how badly I wanted to. I should go, I whispered, my voice unsteady. He didn't stop me, but he didn't move either. I backed toward the door, quilt in hand, heart pounding like it was trying to outrun my body. Good night, Brian. Good night, Caroline. I closed the door gently behind me and stood in the hallway for a long moment, staring at nothing. My legs felt shaky. My thoughts were a storm. This wasn't just loneliness anymore. Something real had been stirred, and I wasn't sure I could ignore it much longer. The next morning was quiet, but not in the usual way. The house held that strange, thick silence that follows a moment you're not quite ready to face. I stayed in bed longer than usual, listening to the rain taper off and the soft creak of floorboards from the guest room. I told myself I was waiting for the kettle to whistle, or for the sun to rise a little higher, but really I was afraid. Afraid of seeing him again and reading something in his eyes I wasn't ready for. Or worse, nothing at all. Eventually, I slipped into my robe, pulled my hair back, and padded downstairs. The smell of coffee greeted me before I even hit the bottom step. He was already in the kitchen. Ryan stood there barefoot, wearing the same hoodie from the night before, sleeves pushed up. He was pouring coffee into 2 mugs like he belonged there, like this had always been a part of our routine. He looked up as I walked in and smiled. Soft, not forced. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I echoed, voice thinner than I wanted it to be. "I figured you'd want coffee. Hope I guessed right." "You did." I took the mug from him, letting our fingers brush just briefly. His hand lingered for a second too long, but I didn't pull away. We sat at the table without speaking much, just sips and glances. The light coming in from the window was golden now, making the old wooden kitchen feel almost warm again. "So, about last night," he said suddenly. I tensed. He noticed. "I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, Caroline," he added gently. "I just don't want to pretend it didn't happen." I looked down at my coffee. The steam curled upward, a slow drifting fog. "I didn't plan for any of that, Ryan." "I know. Neither did I." There was sincerity in his voice. No pressure. Just honesty. "I haven't felt anything like that in a very long time," I admitted quietly, staring at my hands wrapped around the mug. It scared me. "Me too," he said. But it didn't feel wrong. That's what caught me off guard, the quiet certainty in his voice. No fumbling, no awkward backtracking, just truth. "You're so young," I said, almost to myself. "You're what, 26? 27 next month," he replied. "But I don't think this is about age." I glanced at him, surprised. He held my gaze. "It's about connection, about 2 people who see something in each other, something real. And the worst part, I did see it. In him, I saw someone who wasn't just attracted to me, but curious, open. He didn't look at me and see a woman past her prime. He saw asterisk me asterisk in all the ways I'd forgotten I could still be seen. "I don't know what to do with this," I admitted. "Maybe we don't have to do asterisk anything," he said. Maybe we just be honest about what's here, whatever it is." A long pause passed between us. He reached across the table, fingers brushing mine again, gentle, no demands. I didn't pull away this time. We sat like that for a while, hand to hand, no words needed. But later that afternoon, when he started gathering his things to leave, just one duffel bag slung over his shoulder, I felt something unexpected tug at me. Loss. I followed him to the door. "So, that's it?" I asked. He turned to me, his expression unreadable at first. Then something softened. "No," he said. "Not if you don't want it to be." I hesitated. "I don't know what this is, Ryan. I don't have a label for it." He nodded. "Me neither." And then he did something that made my heart thump in my chest. He leaned in, slow and unhurried, and pressed a gentle kiss to my cheek. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't platonic either. It was something else, something between the lines. And then he was gone. I stood in the doorway long after his car pulled away, one hand still resting on the frame. The air felt different now, like something had shifted inside me. I didn't know where it was going, but I knew one thing. I wasn't the same woman I was the day before. A week passed, and in that time I replayed every moment from that night and the morning after more times than I care to admit. The silence in the house felt louder. Not painful, just different, like something had been stirred and couldn't be put back the same way. I went about my routines, reading in the morning, walking in the late afternoon, folding laundry with the TV humming in the background. But I was aware of the quiet in a new way, as if I was listening for footsteps that weren't coming. Then, late one evening, I got a text. **Key, Caroline. I hope it's okay that I reached out. I've been thinking about you. A lot. ***. I stared at it for a long time before replying. ***. It's okay. I've been thinking too. ***. We didn't try to label it. Not in that message. Not in the next few, either. But over the following days, our conversations returned. Easy, warm, open. Sometimes playful, sometimes deep. And I found myself waiting for his name to light up my screen more than I expected. One afternoon, Janet called, just a casual check-in. "Ryan said he saw you," she mentioned in passing. "Said he dropped off the candles and you caught up a bit." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Yes, we talked for a while. It was nice to see him. She laughed. "He always adored you, you know. When he was a kid, he used to draw little cards for you and slip them into our mailbox. You probably never saw them. I think he was too shy to actually deliver them." "I didn't know that," I said softly. "Well," she chuckled, "now you do." After we hung up, I sat by the window and watched the clouds roll over the hills, the kind of slow, thoughtful clouds that seemed to move with purpose. I thought about how time had passed, how Ryan had grown, and how I had paused. How I'd told myself for so long that my time for passion, for connection, had come and gone. But that wasn't true. And I realized that this, whatever this asterisk was, wasn't about regret. It wasn't about rewinding or trying to feel young again. It was about being seen, really seen, and allowing myself to see someone else in return, even when it didn't follow the rules. A few days later, I was walking back from the store, arms full of groceries, when I saw a car I recognized parked in front of my house. Ryan was leaning against the driver's side door, hands in his pockets, that same quiet, thoughtful look on his face. "You are just going to show up without warning?" I said, surprised but not upset. "I figured I already crossed a few lines," he said. "What's one more?" I smiled, heart thudding in my chest. We walked inside together. No grand declarations, no dramatics. Just two people entering the same space with open hearts and a little less fear. We talked again, really talked, this time with everything on the table. I told him about my doubts, my guilt, the weight of what others might think. He listened. Not to fix, not to argue, just to understand. And when he reached for my hand again, I let him. This time, I didn't hesitate. We sat in the living room as the sun dipped low, golden light, spilling across the rug, the way it used to when my children were still small and everything felt full. Only now, that fullness came from something else. Something new. It wasn't a love story I expected. And maybe it wasn't one I would have chosen 10 years ago. But sitting there, hand in hand, heart steady, I realized it was exactly the kind I needed now. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living asterisk forward asterisk again. Not out of habit, but out of hope.